Hey everybody, Jason Ryan from iAnimate here. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're all doing fantastic. In today's snippet, we're going to talk about live action reference and how to use it properly. So when I'm going into an actual shot and I'm going to shoot some live action reference, the first thing that I want to do is go into my shot with a plan. So the first thing I usually do on a major feature film is open up the actual shot to see the surrounding area, to see the set, to see how many steps it's going to take to get from A to B, like getting your character in there, just even if it's in the T pose, just so I know sort of what the surroundings are like in relation to my character, okay? And then when I'm going to shoot live action reference, the first thing I do is think about what the acting is going to be. Like how many gestures am I going to use? How many, like, what the staging is going to be like? How many poses am I going to need to pull this acting across? And usually what I try to do is do like a quick scribble pass of my actual shot. So this one shot that I just kind of worked out here is for a Scarecrow shot. And then the Scarecrow, the line that I'm actually animating in is this.
I showed her my true face. Her reaction wasn't very flattering. As a matter of fact, she got downright hysterical.
So in this, like, I'm really just trying to play out the fewest amount of poses that I can think of to kind of pull this acting across, right? And when I'm doing this, like what's happening is it's informing my brain on the amount of staging poses that I need, okay? And this is not necessarily that I'm marrying myself to this actual acting. It's just sort of like the concept, like trying to get it into my head. So I try to work it out as briefly and as quickly as possible, just so I can kind of allow the shot to evolve, right? And then with this in mind, like I've got my certain poses that I want to hit, and then I want the little thought, and then I want to kind of hit a kind of a funny expression at the very end, like downright hysterical, So with that in mind, that's when I turn on the camera. Okay, so at the very end, I'm trying to push past like natural acting and sort of get into the sort of the comical side of the expression. But this is basically it, right? So I showed her my true face. Her reaction wasn't very flattering. As a matter of fact, she got downright hysterical, right? So what I'm doing is I'm actually listening over my headphones to the track. So I'm trying to do the reference in the right emotion of the character. And to do that, I had to do that 2D pass, right? So without doing the 2D pass, I usually sort of am lost in sort of like trying out different expressions, different gestures, and it usually ends up being sort of overacted, right? And now overacted in a bad way. Like this is overacting, but like sort of in a comical way, right? So with this in mind, then I take this and I need to get it in sync to my wave file, right? So usually what I do is I use a program called Digicel Flipbook. Create new scene, and it's 960 by 540. I want to get that right aspect ratio of the shot. And then I bring it into the BG column right here. So I go File, Import Movie. And if I go to that Scarecrow demo, I bring up Ref, and I load that right into my BG column right here. And I recorded this on a digital camera, so it's 30 frames per second. I need to drop it down to 24 frames per second. That's super important, because if you just bring it into your Maya scene at 30 frames per second, it won't be in sync to your Maya timeline. It won't be in sync to the wave file, and you absolutely need it to be in sync. And with Maya, unless you're animating on TV, which is 30 frames per second, but on feature films, it's 24. So make sure that you're animating or bringing the reference in at the right frame rate, because otherwise it will be out of sync. Now there's probably going to be a good few frames at the very beginning here where it's not going to be in sync. And then I'm going to bring in the audio file, the correct audio file right here, true face audio. Okay, hit OK. And then you see the wave file right there. So now, like if I play this, it will not be in sync, right? Because there's a certain amount of footage of me, waiting for the sound file to actually start. But then I need to get that in sync.
I showed her my true face.
So there it is, right? So now I'm way off, right? So let's say if so it's probably around here. So I'm going to go right to, like, let's say 15. Okay, so 1 to 15. I'm just going to go ahead and delete. Okay, and now let's say it's got a cache here just a little bit, just to make sure it's in the playback system. Okay.
I showed her my true face. Her reaction wasn't very flattering. As a matter of fact, she got downright hysterical.
Okay.
I showed her.
All right. And then it might be just another couple of frames, maybe. So let's just try another 2 frames. See if I can get this exactly in sync. So usually what I try to do, if it's a huge long line, I'll write down the line so I can kind of memorize it. But also I want to try to say it in the way that the character is saying it, or the way that I actually want the character to say it in, like the performance wise. So on any feature film that I'm working on, like this is the most efficient way of actually kind of playing out gestures, you know, to show it to your director, to kind of give them a kind of a good clue as to how you're actually going to play the character. And sometimes if I'm working on a group of shots, I'll shoot this reference for a bunch of shots, just so I can kind of get to play with the character, get to feel a role on how the character is going to play out over those number of shots, right? So let's play it again.
I showed her my true face. Her reaction wasn't very flattering. As a matter of fact, she got downright hysterical.
And then what this gives me is a really good roadmap for my storytelling poses, right? So now I'm not just going to go frame 1, frame 2, frame 3 and try to copy it or rotoscope it. What I'm looking for now is my storytelling poses, right? So if I'm looking at this,
I showed her my true face.
This would be a storytelling pose right here. Right? That's a storytelling pose. And that's sort of, you know, sort of like grand, sort of like, I showed her my true face. I think I'm beautiful, you know, but then there's a thought right before the next actual action, right? So there's a little thought right here. And that timing is crucial, right? So he changed the expression and then her reaction wasn't very flattering. And we have this little teeny tiny head shake and a nod in there, which is super subtle. But when you layer this stuff into your animation, it starts to become very, very full and very detailed. And you almost forget that it's animated, right? If you can capture this kind of sort of ambient motion, if you will. Okay. Then there's that double blink right there as the next thought. As a matter of fact. I dart over, I dart this way. So now I can go through frame by frame and see how many frames it takes to do an eye dart. And it's the eye dart first that's driving my head upwards. And then in here, there's a whole bunch of little motion that I want to try to hit. But you can see like there's a quick motion and then a quick pause, right? Like you can feel in here, it's like my head just kind of locks almost in place. And it's those little freezes that will give me this sort of erratic kind of feel.
Right, hysterical.
And then for this, you know, how long I'm actually in this hysterical, my tongue up and then my tongue comes down, hysterical, you know. So I want to try to get that. Now, I may not want to just kind of stare out into space. I may want to bring it down a little bit. So that's how I shoot live action reference, and that's how I treat it. So just trying to find my storytelling poses, bring this into Maya, right? So I'm exporting this out as PNGs, put it onto an image plane, because now it's synced to the audio file that I'm going to be animating to. And then I bring that into Maya so that I can go through pose by pose, right, in the actual shot. So finding those poses, caricaturing it for the character, and then once I've got those, then I can put the reference away and start to break it down the way I want to break it down.